Why do civilizations, separated by oceans, all describe the same thing, a world beneath our feet? The Greeks called it Hades. Hindu texts spoke of Patala, a subterranean realm of serpent kings. Tibetan mystics whispered of Agartha, a radiant city hidden inside the planet. And in Native American traditions, humanity's ancestors did not fall from the sky. They emerged from caverns within the earth. Historians call these myths coincidence, but can stories that echo across cultures and centuries truly be chance, or are they fragments of a memory we were never meant to preserve in history books? In 1692, one of England's greatest scientists, Edmund Halley, put his reputation on the line. The man who charted the famous comet proposed that Earth was hollow, made of concentric shells, each rotating separately, each glowing with light. He even claimed the auroras were proof, energy leaking from the interior world. Today, textbooks dismiss it as eccentric, but why would a respected royal astronomer risk everything on such a theory, unless he had seen evidence we no longer possess? A century later, American officer John Cleves Sims made his own declaration. The Earth, he said, was hollow, with vast openings at the poles. He begged Congress to fund an expedition. They laughed. They silenced him. Yet his followers carved a monument in his honor, a globe drilled open at the top, a permanent warning that entrances might be real. Was Sims insane, or was he simply ignored because the truth was too dangerous? And then came the writers. Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth described explorers descending into caverns beneath Iceland, discovering oceans lit by inner suns and prehistoric creatures alive below. Edgar Allan Poe hinted at a polar passage in his only novel. H.G. Wells imagined subterranean races manipulating mankind's destiny. We call them storytellers, but what if their novels were something else? Coded revelations disguised as adventure, truths smuggled into fiction so the world could read them without understanding. By the dawn of the 20th century, the hollow earth was no longer just legend. Secret lodges and occult societies whispered of luminous masters guiding humanity from below. Pulp magazines printed tales of explorers stumbling into underground cities armed with technologies beyond imagination. And esoteric writers claimed that the mysterious lights seen in polar skies, the strange compasses that spun near the poles, and even unexplained magnetic anomalies were breadcrumbs pointing to the entrances Sims had described. Coincidence? Or a pattern hidden in plain sight? Because the deeper you look, the harder it becomes to dismiss. Why do so many cultures preserve the same story? Why did a respected scientist and a decorated officer stake their lives on this idea? Why did novelists separated by decades all imagine the same vision of a world within? The hollow earth may have been mocked as myth and condemned as fantasy, but in the 1930s one regime would take it seriously. A regime obsessed with bloodlines, ancient origins, and hidden power. And for the first time in history, they would try to prove that the hollow earth is real. Why did Nazi Germany send expeditions to the ends of the earth, to Tibet, to Syria, to Antarctica, at the very moment they were preparing for global war? Most nations were building tanks and planes. The Reich was chasing something else. Origins, myths, and power hidden beneath the surface. To them, myths were not parables. They were blueprints. The Thule Society, a secretive occult circle at the roots of the Nazi Party, preached that lost homelands and hidden masters shaped history. Heinrich Himmler believed these legends could be proven, and to do it, he created the Ahnenerbe, the Ancestral Heritage Institute. On paper, the Ahnenerbe was cultural research. In reality, it blurred science with sorcery. Its agents measured skulls in Tibet, translated esoteric manuscripts in Syria, and scoured Nordic caves for traces of forgotten civilizations. Every myth was a lead, every legend a map, and one target overshadowed them all: the hollow earth. In 1938, a German expedition sailed to Antarctica. Officially, they were surveying land for whaling stations, but eyewitnesses reported something stranger. Planes flew low over Queen Maud Land, dropping aluminum darts stamped with swastikas into the ice. Why mark territory no one else claimed, unless the mission was about more than maps? Some accounts speak of ice-free valleys, warmed by geothermal vents, hidden deep inside the frozen continent. Others mention cavern systems beneath the ice, sketched on secret maps later found in SS archives. And yet, after the war, Those same archives were stripped bare, files vanished, reports destroyed. The few that survived were sealed away by Allied intelligence. Why erase the record of a simple survey, unless it uncovered something no one wanted revealed? And Antarctica was only one obsession. Inside Germany, a fringe doctrine called the Hohlweltlehre, the hollow world theory, claimed humanity was living inside the Earth, beneath an inner sun. It sounds absurd today, but SS officers actually tested it. Telescopes were aimed across the horizon, searching for inverted ships, as if the heavens were projected across a concave sphere. Strange experiments for a military preparing for war, unless someone truly believed the hollow Earth could be proven. As the Reich collapsed in 1945, expeditions disappeared from official records. Witnesses were silenced. Archives were divided between the Allies and the Soviets, many never seen again. Yet rumors spread that some Nazis who fled to South America did not stop there, that they pushed farther south, toward Antarctica, following the same maps, the same whispers, the same entrances. Why were the Allies so determined to seize every scrap of Ahnenerbe material? Why did Soviet archives lock away Antarctic files even decades later? And why do modern satellite maps show blurred regions right where these entrances were once rumored to exist? The Reich may have fallen, but its obsession did not die. It slipped underground, into classified vaults and Cold War secrecy. Because after 1945, the hollow Earth was no longer just a myth of origins. It became a weapon of paranoia, a question of survival. What, or who, might already be waiting below? The Reich had fallen, but its secrets did not die with it. As Europe smoldered in 1945, fragments of Nazi research vanished into vaults, seized by the Soviets, buried by the Allies, whispered about in intelligence corridors. And in the new atomic age, the hollow Earth was reborn. No longer just a myth. Now, it was a classified subject. Because if the Reich had really searched for entrances beneath the ice, what had they found? And why, in the years that followed, did the Cold War's strangest anomalies seem to cluster around the poles? In 1947, Admiral Richard E. Byrd led Operation Highjump, the largest Antarctic expedition ever assembled. Over 4,000 men, 13 ships, aircraft carriers, planes, a military armada sent to the end of the Earth. Officially, it was training. Unofficially, researchers argue it was a hunt for something the Nazis had left behind. What happened next remains shrouded in contradiction. The mission was planned for 8 months. It lasted barely 8 weeks. Aircraft were lost. Dozens of men died. The fleet turned back in sudden retreat. Byrd returned grim and cautious, warning in interviews that America must prepare to defend itself from threats that could strike from the poles. Weather, they said. Accidents, they said. But why the silence? The sudden withdrawal, the sealed reports, and then, the most explosive claim of all, the so-called secret diary of Admiral Byrd. In its pages, Byrd describes flying through a polar opening into a lush inner world, guided by advanced beings who warned humanity about its own destruction. Official historians dismiss it as a fabrication, a document that surfaced decades later with no proof it came from Byrd himself. Yet the question lingers. If it was fake, why was it hidden? And if it was real, why was it buried? The same year, the modern UFO era erupted. Discs and saucers were suddenly everywhere. Official explanations pointed upward, visitors from the stars. But conspiracy researchers asked something simpler. What if they weren't coming from above at all? What if they were rising from below, from hidden hangars inside mountains, from tunnels beneath the ice, from entrances carved into the hollow Earth? Writers like Ray Palmer pushed the Shaver mystery, tales of subterranean races wielding ancient technology. Readers dismissed it as pulp fiction. But buried in intelligence files, fragments of similar accounts appear. Contact reports, unexplained radar blips, encounters near polar regions. Fiction and fact blurred until no one could tell the difference. Meanwhile, governments dug deeper. The Americans built NORAD into the heart of Cheyenne Mountain. The Soviets expanded Yamantau, a sprawling underground complex so secret its true purpose remains classified even today. Officially, these were defensive bunkers, but conspiracy theorists argue they were something more. Proof that superpowers believed the real frontier was not the skies, but the world beneath. And Antarctica would not stay quiet. Rumors of Nazi bases refused to die. Submarines said to vanish in the south. Strange lights spotted in the polar night. Even reports of clashes between British, Chilean, and American forces in Antarctic waters. History calls them coincidences. Conspiracy lore calls them cover-ups. Then came the anomalies, magnetic scars across the ice, gravity readings hinting at buried structures. Satellite images blurred exactly where entrances are rumored to exist. Natural, scientists say. Convenient, others whisper. By the 1950s, the Hollow Earth was no longer pulp magazine fantasy. It had fused with UFOs, with Nazi relics, with Cold War paranoia. And once a myth slips into classified files, it ceases to be a story. It becomes a secret. And secrets are never kept to protect the truth. They are kept to protect power. Science insists the case is closed. Seismology, gravity, magnetism, all of it points to a solid Earth. To geophysicists, the Hollow Earth is impossible, a fantasy buried centuries ago. But if that's true, why do anomalies keep piling up? When earthquakes strike, seismic waves ripple through the planet. By measuring how they bend and reflect, scientists mapped the Earth's interior. Crust, mantle, liquid outer core, and a solid ball of iron at the center. No empty caverns, no inner suns. On paper, it's airtight. And yet, the data is not as perfect as it seems. Some seismic waves move strangely, faster in one direction than another, as if crystals deep inside the core are aligned in mysterious ways. In 2002, researchers announced the discovery of an innermost inner core, a region unlike anything expected. To scientists, it's a breakthrough in mineral physics, but to conspiracists, it sounds like a hidden structure science can't explain away. The South Atlantic anomaly is another puzzle, a dent in Earth's magnetic field so severe that satellites passing overhead glitch, stall, or die. Space agencies say it's turbulence in the molten core. Believers say it's a scar, evidence of energy bleeding from within. Gravity surveys raise new questions. In East Antarctica's Wilkes Land, satellites mapped a massive circular anomaly hundreds of miles wide. Mainstream theory calls it an asteroid impact basin, but conspiracy lore calls it something else. A buried dome, a sealed gate, a wound in the ice that points to what lies beneath. And then there is Lake Vostok, a vast subglacial lake sealed under miles of Antarctic ice for millions of years. When magnetic surveys showed disturbances near its shoreline, researchers shrugged. When samples pulled from accretion ice revealed strange microbial DNA, they called them extremophiles. But conspiracy theorists ask, what else could thrive in a world hidden from the surface since before humanity existed? Science provides explanations, but explanations change. Each anomaly is answered with new terms, new theories, new equations. But why do the anomalies keep multiplying? Why do so many remain unresolved, decades after discovery? And what about the questions no one seems eager to answer? Why are satellite images of the polar regions blurred or distorted, as if by design? Why do certain military surveys of Antarctica remain classified, long after the Cold War ended? Why, in a world mapped to the inch, do the poles remain shrouded in mystery? Skeptics say there is nothing to hide. Believers counter, if there's nothing to hide, why keep hiding it? This is where science and conspiracy collide. Science says the Earth is solid. Conspiracy says the data is selective, the anomalies ignored, the truth suppressed. And in the end, the Hollow Earth survives, not because of what science explains, but because of what it doesn't. Because for every seismic chart, every gravity map, every polished theory, one question still cuts through. What lies beneath the ice, in the places no one is allowed to see?